welcome. This is a continuation on the series we're talking about dating. It would be better if you watch the first episode where we talked about the 5 questions to ask when you are dating. It's better to go through that before you watch this video to give you a good understanding of the series. In this episode, we want to talk about after you have identified that this is the person you want to get married to, this is the guy or the girl that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, to decide if this is the person you're going to marry. That's why you need to watch the first video, which talks about how to arrive at that decision, which is asking yourself those 5 questions and having the help of the Holy Spirit to guide you. So after you have identified that this is the person you want to marry, between then and when you finally get married to the person, there is a process you need to go through to ensure that you lay a good foundation for your marriage. In other words, there are things you need to do from when you decide you're going to marry him, or when you accept the ring from him, or when you decide you're going to marry her. From that time till when you're married, there's a few things you should do. Don't just waste that time. Many people just enjoy the excitement of he proposed or I'm getting married, and we focus on that and forget to use the time wisely to lay good foundation. There are certain things you need to do in that phase that you shouldn't be doing when you are married, otherwise you may have some challenges in the marriage. So that period is called, traditionally it's called the courtship. It's a period where you want to lay the foundation for the marriage. So you have identified who you're going to marry, but you want to make sure you marry right. You have chosen the right person, but how to marry right is what we're talking about in this episode. So basically what you're doing in this phase of your dating is trying to ascertain how are we going to live our lives. How will our marriage be? Okay, so I'm getting married to you. I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you. But how are we going to live that life? What kind of marriage do we want to have? And this phase, you have to ask every question and engage in every conversation. This is the time when you leave no stone unturned. You work out every little detail. So every meeting you have, every date you have, it's the time to not just hang out and plan your wedding. It's a time to plan your future, engage each other, and have agreements, have discussions on every little thing. Every little thing include things like where are we going to live when we get married? You see, people don't ask this question. The fundamental of this courtship phase is no assumptions. Don't assume that two of you are on the same page on any subject, because this has led to so many a problem in marriages. You think that because two of you met in Lagos, that by default he's thinking he's going to live in Lagos, or you are thinking. Don't assume. You have to have the conversations so that there are no surprises, or at least there's minimal surprise when you are married. Where are we going to live when we get married? Which city? There are many cities in the world. Where's your dream city you would like to live? Ask about job and career and business. What are you doing just now, both of you? But also, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years, and how do I fit into the picture? If you work a job or you run a business that makes you travel a lot, how is that going to impact on the marriage, the strain on the marriage? You have to have that conversation. If you work a job like I travel a lot, I had to have the conversation with my fiancée before I got married. What's the impact on that on the marriage? How do you stay alone when I travel a lot? How do I stay alone when you travel a lot? How do we raise kids under that kind of environment? Do we need to make changes? If, for example, he works 9 to 5, you work 9 to 5. If you live in Lagos, Nigeria, that would be 5 to 9 actually, because with the traffic and everything, you get home very late. If both of you are working that kind of job, then the question is, how do you have children and raise children in that kind of environment? Who's going to be the parents that will be available for the kids? Or do you want to delegate your parenting to the nanny? You have to have that conversation. And don't assume that because It's an African marriage. You're marrying a traditional African girl that you think she will be at home to raise the kids and you will be out there hustling. No, don't make assumptions. Ask the question. People just believe that it's the woman's job to, if somebody needs to be at home, she needs to resign her job. It's a case by case thing. If, for example, she's working a job that pays 3 times more than the guy, it may not just be by default that she has to leave her job. No, that's not fair. That conversation, you need to have the conversation to decide how you are going to have one parent or both parents available for certain hours of the day to parent the kids when you start raising kids. Have the conversation when you are still dating, in the courtship phase. Have that conversation about your career, the impact of your jobs and your career on what will be your marriage in the future. Have the conversation about who's going to cook. And that, every time I talk about that, people say that's stupid. But nothing is stupid in this phase. Don't assume that it's the woman's job to always make the meal. Even if she will make most of the meal, you people can be on different places when it comes to how food is going to be managing, and food is critical. Some guys believe that the woman will have to be in the kitchen all the time, make breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day of her life. If you believe that, you shouldn't be marrying a woman who has a job or who has a career, because she can't be home to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If she's working 9 to 5, she may not even be able to make lunch and dinner. She may come home late in traffic that she can't even make dinner. Don't assume, because this puts strain in the marriage. This is improper dating is the reason why most marriages don't work. So don't go into the marriage just thinking we'll figure it out. Have the conversation. How do we eat? How do we get breakfast, lunch, and dinner? I had that conversation with my wife before we got married. That I told her, I don't want you in the kitchen in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening making food. Then I will not have a wife. I'm not looking for a chef. I'm looking for a wife. If we need to get a chef to help with our meals, we need to discuss that, because I like personally for my wife to be around me. I don't want her in the kitchen morning, afternoon, evening. So, but everybody has their own expectation, and this is the phase where you treat each other's expectation of marriage. What do they expect from marriage? You people may be in totally different places in expectations, and if you don't discuss it and bring it together, you could go into the marriage with wrong assumptions, wrong foundations that would produce cracks along the way. I want to talk about 2 very important things that you need to discuss in this phase of dating. One of them is money, and the other one is sex. Money and sex. It's very important because, especially in Christian marriages, we don't seem to talk enough about this in church. We don't talk about money enough. We don't talk about sex enough. Now, from my personal experience, I found out that when we counsel people who are married and they have issues and they're telling you he doesn't come home on time, she doesn't respect me, she's very rude, she's very loud-mouthed. Most times, and not all of the time, but most times, the problem is not coming home late and all that. There's a root cause, there's a real issue, and the real issue most times is around money or sex. The sex is not good. There's problem about how we make money, how we manage our money. It produces all these other symptoms. People start to drift apart, start to argue. There's no communication. There's poor communication. They're spending time outside. They feel there's no trust. Usually, it's about the money or the sex. So talk about these 2 things in the dating phase. How do you plan to make money and manage money? You know, I have a video on the 5 things to do with money. You should watch that when I put it out there. The 5 things to do with money. You make money, you save money, you invest money, you spend money, you give money. How do you do that? When you're dating, you have to figure out how you're going to manage your money. How are we going to make money? Our jobs, our businesses, our careers. But also, most importantly, how do you save? Are you going to have a joint account? Don't assume that 2 of you are coming from the same place. The girl may be coming from a marriage where her parents have a joint account and they put all the money in one basket. The guy may be coming from a place where his money is his money, your money is your money. Let's be like this. Don't assume. Discuss how are we going to save money. In saving money, Do we want to put it in one basket in a joint account, everything we make, and then we spend from there? That can work for some people, may not work for some people. There's no generic rule. I don't believe when people tell you that that's the only way. Personally, I don't have a joint account with my wife. I have my account, she has her account, and then I have one account where we put our money. So I have my money, which I spend how I like. She has her money, she spends how she likes. And then we have our money, which we put because we're going to pay the fees, the bills, and we're going to get a house, the mortgage, everything. So that's how but I discussed that in my dating phase. I bought paper and a pen and said, okay, money, how do we manage that? And we discussed all the options. And then we came to this agreement that this is most likely what will work. So it works for us. You have to discuss what works for you about money. How do you give money? Because you're going to give money when you get married, and you start making more money. There's responsibility. There's relatives and friends and neighbors who will place demands on you. How do you give money? You have to be intentional about that. Otherwise, one partner in the marriage is thinking that you are not open enough. Maybe you're giving too much, or you're not giving my people, you're giving your people, all that kind of talk. You have to have the conversation in this phase, in the courtship phase, and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to spend the money. This is how we're going to give money. I have a process in my own family where a certain amount of money is kept aside to help people. And that's the money we use to help. If it's finished, it's finished. But you have to discuss what works for you, how you're going to manage helping people with money, spending money, the kind of lifestyle you want to live, what percentage of your income you're going to use to spend, and what percentage you're going to save, how are you going to save it, investments that you're going to make as you grow. Have this kind of conversation. It gives you an idea where your partner is thinking towards in terms of money. Very important. Also sex. But before I talk about sex, there's one little thing you also need to discuss. Who's going to live with you when you're married? Who's going to be in the same house with you? Don't assume. The guy may just be coming from a place where his normal is, when I get married, 6 of my relatives are going to come and live with me. And the girl may be coming from a place where nobody lives with me. I'm not used to that. I want to be alone with my spouse. You have to have that conversation so that nobody is thrown apart, or surprisingly. You have to have a conversation of how many children are we going to have if God gives you children. How many? You want to have 2, she wants to have 8, 4. How many? Have that conversation. Then have the conversation of the what ifs. What if God doesn't give us any children? Now, I know we are people of faith, but there's a problem there, because the fact that you have faith that it won't rain doesn't mean you shouldn't buy an umbrella. Have the discussions. You're not believing that you won't have kids, but have that conversation so that you can pick each other's brain on what is your perspective to life. The people who are married and don't have kids, they're not bad people. It's not their fault. God gives children in His time. So what if you get married and God does not give you children? What will happen? If you don't discuss this, then you will be having the discussion when you're already in the marriage and there's no kids, and there's all the pressure from the spouse, from the relatives, from society about children, and you can't have a constructive conversation under those kind of pressure. So better to have it when you are not yet married. What if we're married and we have no kids? What if one of us loses the job and we go through a phase where there's no money? How do we manage that? What if somebody is diagnosed with a terminal sickness? How do you manage that? Discuss all the what ifs, the good, the bad, the ugly, just to pick each other's brain, just to know your position on different things that can happen, because marriage is a long process. It's very long, that several things will happen. Discuss retirement. Discuss your perspective of educating your children. Some people just want to put them in a public school. Some people want them to go to the best school possible. So have those discussions of what are you bringing into this marriage. Don't assume. What is your expectation? What is my expectation? Let's put it on the table. That is the courtship process. Lastly, discuss sex. My advice, few weeks to the marriage, start talking about sex. Start talking about what do you know about sex. Especially in Christianity, where we don't talk much about sex. And it's a problem in marriages because we don't have these conversations. Even married people can't talk to each other about sex. They have sex, but they don't have the discussion. They can't talk about it. They're too holy to broach the subject. So what happens is that they're having the sex, But because they are not talking, she's not asking like, what I did to you last night, did you enjoy it? He's not coming to say, I have an idea of something I want us to try. Yes, the fact that you're Christian doesn't mean you shouldn't have those discussions. You have to be able to satisfy each other sexually. People have fantasies. People have crazy naughtiness that they want to experiment. But if you can't be free enough to talk about it in the marriage, you will not be sexually fulfilled. And then somewhere down the line, you probably will look for that fulfillment from somewhere else. So it's better to talk about it. I used to say that in Christianity, I believe that Christian wives and pastors' wives, they are some of the most sexually frustrated human beings on earth. Because we are so holy, we don't talk about it. And these people have fantasies. The pastor has fantasies, crazy naughtiness. The pastor's wife does, the Christian does. We need to engage ourselves and be free enough to discuss our crazy naughtiness, our adventures, all the things we have in the mind. Talk about it, the sexual craziness. But the reason we're not free to talk about it in marriage is because when we were dating, we didn't even go to the subject. So it was too holy, or let's deal with that later. And then there's always later and later, until when you start having sex in marriage, you find that it's difficult to have the conversation, to start the conversation. But imagine if you guys are already free talking about it before you even got married. It just flows. So have the conversation, few weeks to your wedding, talk about it. Talk about sex, talk about what you know about sex. Bring each other's level of experience or level of knowledge about the subject. Begin to engage each other gradually, and you go through to the honeymoon with that, and you're able to continue the conversation in marriage. Sexual frustration is one of the root cause of a lot of problems in marriages. Lastly, when you are in courtship, you're preparing to get married. So you are working a project, you have a project. You have to anticipate that projects, when you are planning, preparing and executing projects, they put strain on any relationship. If you're in project management, you know that. So in the courtship process, when you're planning the wedding, you need to anticipate what this planning and executing a wedding, whether it's the traditional, the introduction, whatever, how it's going to impact on your relationship. Some people start their marriage with cracks because the few months leading to the wedding, there's already so much tension that they're not even in good terms, or they're already regretting, why am I even marrying this person? And then they go into the marriage, and if people are going to be sincere with you, during the honeymoon, people are not talking, they're fighting, they're barely talking because of all the pressure they brought from the wedding planning and this whole project execution. So anticipate that this is going to put some strain. Plan for it before you even start planning the wedding. Plan how you're going to manage the process, the project. Sometimes you may need to take a break off the planning of your wedding to just get out. For 2 weeks of the wedding, you just go away and you're just having a hangout that you're not talking wedding plans. Nothing. You're just trying to figure out again, why am I marrying this guy? What you love about this girl? Why do you do that? So that the pressure of the wedding planning does not create strain that you carry into the marriage and you lay a wrong foundation. So all these issues, you have to engage yourself in the courtship phase. Don't just have dates where you are just excited and are just playing. Use the time between when you're sure you're marrying him or her till when you're married to discuss any and everything, so that you can go into the marriage without assumptions, without false expectations, and you can expect to start on a clean slate with clear understanding, with clear perspective, and with good agreements. That's what you do in your courtship phase. I hope you learned something from this. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to my channel and share this video with someone if it's blessed you. And it's good to subscribe so that when I put in more videos, you will get a notification. Once again, thank you very much.